It's the law. It's the law that's got to be set up so that people cannot be plundered. And in this country right now, that's all that's going on, and you better be aware of it. My favorite, man, Mr. Frederick Bastiat, or whatever it is, Frederick, good old philosopher from France. I mean, he lays down the law. The law is very simple. Life, it's a gift from God. It's that simple. And what happens? Well, since it's a gift from God, the creator of life has entrusted us with the responsibility of preserving, developing, and perfecting life. Okay, so think about it. Life is the gift. Our faculties, all right, to work with resources of nature, we come up with production. In other words, what he's saying, we have life, so we have individuality. We have faculties, and from those faculties, we obtain our liberty. And through production, we obtain property. And this is man, you know? And so what happens is that, what? In spite of all the cunning and artful political leaders, these three gifts from God precede all human legislation are superior to it. You know? And I like to say that, he says, life, liberty, and property do not exist because men have made laws. He said, contrary. He said, it is the fact that life, liberty, and property existed beforehand that caused men to make laws in the first place. And, you know, he talks about the fatal tendency of mankind, and that is self-preservation and self-development are common aspirations among all people, and that if everyone enjoyed the unrestricted use of his faculties and the free disposition of the fruits of his labor, social progress would be ceaseless, uninterrupted, and unfailing. But there's another tendency that is common among the people, that when they can, they wish to live and prosper at the expense of others. Bureaucrats! That's right, bunch of bureaucrats
that's the legal
out
plunder.
There. Legal plunder. Woo-wee.
You know, the Federal Reserve, I'm sure throughout, you know, this bailout, here's something, you know, that nobody's ever really stopped to ask the question is, where did the Federal Reserve get the $7 billion or $700 billion to do the bailout, or the trillions that they're bailing out?
That's legal plunder.
You know where they got it? They went, and they wrote it on a ledger. And then now they're going to hand the bill to the United States government, and they're going to levy taxes on us through Congress, and then we're going to pay back real money because we have to work for that money, whereas all they had, the Federal Reserve had to do was just write it out. You know, that's why we've said, you know, I've said the Federal Reserve is a fraud. Federal Reserve account unit device. Get it? It's right in front of us once again. You know, rip the layers off the matrix there and look at it for what it really is. If our standard of currency was based on gold, $20 an ounce, we would not be in this predicament, plain and simple.
Buzz, we've talked about the enemies of freedom.
Oh, that's one of the biggest ones.
George Bush did in his State of the Union there back many years ago, that meatball. But Bill Moyers wrote back in 1990, check this out, folks. This is, for some people, what freedom is. You know what they're looking for? Secrecy is the freedom zealots dream of. No watchman to check the door. No accountant to check the books, no judge to check the law. The secret government has no constitution. The rules it follows are the rules it makes up as it goes. Just like Mr. Amschel Rothschild said, give me control of the money, I care not who makes the laws. You know? Come on, people. Whoa. How do we identify legal plunder? I know we might be getting off base here, but it's going on in our country.
No, eminent domain down in New London. It's a perfect example.
Well, all the bailout and everything.
That too.
You know, it says, but how is legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply, folks. It's, see if the law takes from some persons, redistribution of wealth, what belongs to them and gives it to other persons to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime. I'm talking about thievery here, folks. He says, then do this, abolish that law without delay, for it not only is an evil in itself, but it also is fertile source for further evils because it invites reprisals. Sound familiar? People, if such a law, which may be an isolated case, is not abolished immediately, it will spread, multiply, and develop into a system. It's called socialism, it's called fascism, it's called communism. The person who profits from this law will complain bitterly, defending his acquired rights. That's right. He will claim that the state is obligated to protect and encourage his particular industry. Sound familiar? Yeah, folks. That this procedure enriches the state because the protected industry is thus able to spend more and to pay higher wages to the poor working man. Bullcorn, can't justify that. Do not listen to this sophistry. Goes on to say, by these vested interests, the acceptance of the arguments will build legal plunder into a whole system. In fact, this has already occurred. The present-day delusion is an attempt to enrich everybody at the expense of everyone else, to make plunder universal under the pretense of organizing it. Don't be fooled, stop bitching, start a revolution. Woo! Educate yourself and those around you so you don't have to tolerate from those politicians what you don't tolerate in your family and your friends. I can't say it any more clearly. Can I get a hallelujah?
Yeah, you know, there is no substantiation for the belief that taxes is always an inevitable. For the first 125 years of this country, there was no income tax. We were free from income tax. There were other taxes that people did pay, tariffs, import taxes to the nation. That's how the nation survived. That's how it sustained its economic development. Today, though, now it's being thrown upon us to pay off the debts of others that, you know, they're being rewarded for their screw-ups, plain and simple. You know, and so now what does that leave to society?
It's not so much that, but when a house is on fire, you know, you go for what's most valuable. The mother goes for the baby or the jewels, right? So like when you got a bailout, you know, they're paying off all their cronies right on the top. You know what I mean? This is what they're doing, people. Woo!
Well, that bailout, I mean, they're just standing there watching it burn. They're not going after the baby or the jewels. They're just letting it all burn and say, yeah, we'll get it from somebody else.
Oh, no, but they're giving them the money, man. They're
giving
their cronies the money.
But they're getting rewarded for their mistakes, their
Was there
failures.
anything else you wanted to get to before I get to another found freedom and forgiveness?
Well, no, because we got just a couple more minutes left. You know, at this point, you know, we basically kind of got to touch pretty much everything.
Right.
You know, as far as a basic idea of what freedom is. And freedom is not just being free to move from one end of the state to the other, you know, or to the end of the country. I mean, freedom is one of those things where if you're impeded upon that, you know, oh, you can't do this because you've got to pay this fee or you've got to go get permission from somebody, you're not really that free. And, you know, and that's the thing, you know, like being free, that we are free to maintain our standard of values. Well, our values have been eroding so long, and for so long and for so deep that, you know, we can't really be a free society and a morally corrupt society because you won't have any standards to lean upon.
Well, I wanted to get into it, folks, but I ain't got much time, so I'll give you what I got. All right, for me, freedom is found in forgiveness. All right, there's a lot of places freedom are found, but let me tell you, I found my freedom in forgiveness. All right, now think about it. Go back to the garden where free will was operating, right? And the outward manifestation of the environment is truly showing the reflection of God, and man has not fallen short of God at this point and his expectations that God has for him. But then in comes the garden experience where, you know, partially because of disobedience of man's choice and his will, you know, he willfully chose and ended up outside of the garden. So freedom and choice to obey is a part of freedom. You know, the Creator through the sacrifice of our will and to freely and gladly serve His will. Hey, this is where I found my freedom. And the bridge that once, you know, once we crossed that bridge, you know, like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, that's when I really woke up. I'm like, wow, man, you know, here's that cat. He had the gumption to be who he was, do what he wanted, but yet, you know what? He was willing to, you know, lay down his life.
Gave up his freedom.
You know, and it tells me something about the man, you know. Tells me that, you know, like, if we sacrifice, if we persevere in good faith, and we develop character. Character's all we take when we leave this planet, folks, you know. It's like we're going to have the courage to draw from the well of hope, man. And hope really is the freedom of the world, you know what I mean? And so who's going to bring the hope forth if we don't have the gumption to sacrifice, to suffer, to persevere, to have our character developed, to have courage. Courage is what 90% of faith is, to grab at the hope that we know is ours. Giving is freedom, okay, folks? And our fate, as symbolized by the Creator in giving us a son and the son giving his life. All right?
Well, we must be out of time at this point, folks.
D.O.F. is prayer and fasting in action.
We just scratched the surface of all the things we would like to have covered in this and the whole concept of what freedom is. But we'll have to pick it up another time. So thank you for letting us into your living room. I'm Buzzy, Zipwak, Psilly, way out, Willy.
Freedom. It cannot
Peace
be given.
Freedom.
It can only be taken.